Hey, greetings, warfighters. It's Catholic SWO. Today I want to talk about a leadership topic, and that is, what do you do when you have a Rockstar subordinate? Right. So if you're a department head, talking about your divos, your chiefs, maybe even your LPOs that are just on top of their game. Right. If you're a divo, then yeah, it's your chief, your LPO, your work center supervisor. Right. Maybe they've just got all the answers. They're always, there with the correct answer. Work's done on time. Maybe you're an XO or a CO watching this, and you've got a department head who is getting ready to put your XO out of a job, right? So this isn't a traditional leadership problem because we always want high-performing subordinates that are working for us, right? That's something that we would actually dream of having. But it can become a problem when you don't know how to lead one of these sailors or officers, right? And so let's first talk about, how do you know if you've got a rock star, right? So some of the things that are the hallmarks of these up-and-comers, they're autonomous, right? You don't need to micromanage them. You don't need to tell them what to do. They know their roles and responsibilities and their authorities, and they execute them, right? They follow up on tasking. Man, it's a big one, right? And all of us can sometimes fail to do this, but they're always there. You asked them a question, you gave them a deadline, and they came back, right? And maybe they even gave you an in-progress review so that you knew they were still tracking it. They have little to no rework. They give you a good product every time. You don't have to chop it. Maybe it's a message, maybe it's a PowerPoint for a presentation, maybe it's a lecture topic for officer training, and you look it over and you say, yeah, wow, I don't have to put any ink on this. They take initiative. They take initiative to do what needs to be done without you having to tell them to do it. And it ties in with this next one, which is planning ahead, right? So as officers and as leaders, we have to plan, right? That's one of the hallmarks that divides us. The chiefs have to plan to a degree, absolutely, but they usually look in the more immediate term, and the divos, the department heads, the XOCOs, we're thinking months and quarters and even years out to get things scheduled and coordinated. And your subordinate doesn't even have to be told to do that. They do it without being told. Okay, and then also maybe they're the subject matter expert, right? This is I've worked with divos and had the pleasure of working with divos who met all of these wickets, right? They had divos who an ASWO who was just on top of her game, had an FCO that knew the weapon system better than just about anyone else. Had a strike officer who could, plan a mission in his sleep. I've had the good fortune to work with a lot of these high-performing officers, and some of these lessons learned, right? So now if you're thinking about, I've got some people that work for me that meet these wickets, right? Yeah, they're probably getting ready to put you out of a job, right? And I mean that in a good way, right? They're ready to go to the next level. Okay, so what are some things to avoid, right? And this is the leadership challenge with having a subordinate who is a high performer. First thing, don't get in their way. Right? That might sound easy, but don't get in their way. Right? Don't try to micromanage. Don't try to tell them what to do all the time. If they know what to do, right? If they know their role, they know their responsibilities, they know what they must accomplish, and they're doing it, don't mess with it. Right? If it works, don't break it, don't fix it. Okay, just let it go. Right? Now, that doesn't mean that your job as a leader is done, hands off. Well, I'm just going to go back to my stateroom because Divo or Chief or whoever else has got it. Right? No. Things that you can do, you can mentor, develop in the areas that they still need work on. Right? So even if you have a really strong Divo or a really strong work center supervisor, a really strong chief, no one's perfect. Right? No one's perfect, and everybody has room to grow. And you can do things as simple as sharing your experience, right? So you can explain to them where you've been weak in the past, pitfalls that you fell into, and how you got out of them, so that they can avoid falling into them. You can find ways to mentor the sailor, perhaps emotionally, professionally, academically, right? Ways that can build up the sailor even further than they already are, right? So maybe they're really strong in warfighting. Maybe they're really strong in administration, but they're not so good at ship handling, right? Or they're not so good at, maybe they're not so good at peer leadership, right? So it's absolutely possible to have an outstanding, division officer, chief, LPO, work center supervisor who does everything that you need them to do, but they don't play along well with others, right? Maybe that's an area where you can devote a lot of your energy into, right? If they already know how to generate the messages and manage the maintenance and lead their sailors, right, but they don't know how to play well with their peers, then that can be an area where you bring your positive aspect of leadership and you show them how to be even better than they are by filling in that gap. One thing also to avoid, I should have mentioned earlier, was I mentioned don't get in their way. You have to realize that when you have a rock star subordinate, it's not a competition, right? You should never feel threatened by somebody who is performing at a high level, perhaps is even more competent than yourself. Right now, this is an ego check, and this is something that is a pitfall that we can fall into as leaders. It is not a competition between you and your subordinates. Right? If you've got a really strong subordinate, someone who knows their job and is just running, on all 8 cylinders, good, right? Good. If they think they're right, instead of you, if you tell them that you need to do this tasking and they're like, no, I know better, well, if you know that they're a high performer and they're generally right, take their advice under consideration, right? Maybe they are right, but you're the boss, right? You're the leader, you're the department head, or you're the divo, and you've got to evaluate that in the context of they're right a lot of the times, but they're not always right. They're still human, right? There may be things they're not aware of. There may be things that they simply haven't learned yet, things that you know that underscore why you are correct. In this case, when you have a high performer, I think it's even more important to not steamroll them, to not simply dominate their will by saying, you're going to do this, no questions asked. If they are that high of a performer, they've probably gotten so because they understand how and why the system works. And so it's important that you continue that trend by explaining to them why they're wrong, right? Not necessarily that they're wrong, but why their idea is not the best way to get something done. You don't make it a competition, you make it another point for you to mentor and develop them. Because even if you have a high performer, that doesn't mean their growth has stopped. All of us have got to keep growing, and we need leaders, we need mentors to do that. Okay, all right, so, how do you know if you've got a rock star? Basically, they're doing everything we're all supposed to be doing anyway, just at a really high level, right? They're autonomous, they follow up, they have little to no rework, they take initiative, they plan ahead, they're the SME in their area. It's exactly what you want. And what do you need to avoid doing? Don't get in their way. Don't micromanage unless you absolutely have to. Don't make it a competition. What you need to do is build them up. Continue building them up. Show them the way in which they can continue to develop, continue to grow. Because one of the dangers of having a high performer is letting them stagnate. If they know they're good, and they are good, but they don't get better, even if they're really good, if they don't get even better than that, they'll get bored, and then their performance may in fact drop off. And that's where you as a leader need to step in. Okay, all right, well, I hope that helps. It's one of those situations that we all think is, we really hope to have a lot of high performers, but in reality, you just need to know a couple extra things in order to lead these outstanding sailors and officers to be even better than they were before. All right, hope this helps, and have a great night, warfighters. Thanks.